This story begins with our MC, Jiang Yan, suddenly opening his eyes inside a bus packed with high school students. After looking around for a moment, he quickly realizes something unbelievable. He has returned to the past. The familiar faces around him and the destination of the bus make it obvious. This is the day he and his classmates are heading to Nanrong Demon Cave Station to awaken their classes after graduating high school. More importantly, this moment takes place 2.5 years before the city is destroyed, giving him a rare chance to change the future. To understand what's happening, we need to go back 12 years. That was when mysterious demon cave entrances suddenly appeared across the world, including the Nanrong Demon Cave. Endless monsters poured out of these gates and began slaughtering humans on a massive scale. Humanity tried to fight back by entering the caves, but they soon discovered a huge problem. Modern weapons became nearly useless inside the demon world because mana interfered with them. Fortunately, people later discovered that anyone who reached the age of 18 and approached a demon cave could awaken special abilities. These awakened individuals became humanity's strongest warriors, and after years of brutal battles, they finally managed to contain the demons and even launch counterattacks into the other world. Because of this, society completely changed. Every 18-year-old graduate now visits a demon cave to awaken a class. These classes are divided into 3 categories: combat, support, and craft. Combat classes are considered the strongest and receive the most respect. Support classes come right behind them, while craft classes sit at the bottom and are constantly looked down upon. In his previous life, Yan awakened an F-rank craft class, making him seem completely ordinary and worthless in the eyes of most people. However, his class came with a hidden trump card. Alongside it, he awakened a divine tier skill called Modify. This absurdly powerful ability allowed him to change a single character in the name of a skill or item, completely altering its effects. Something worthless could become priceless, while something powerful could become useless. The moment influential people discovered this ability, they immediately took him under their control and forced him to use it for their benefit. Through Yan's power, countless useless items and weak abilities were transformed into valuable treasures. But the more they relied on him, the more they feared him. Someone with the power to alter skills and equipment was simply too dangerous to leave unchecked. Because of that, they restricted his freedom, controlled his growth, and kept him under constant watch. For years, Yan was treated less like a person and more like a tool that powerful figures could use whenever they wanted. Everything came crashing down one night, when a level 96 dragon-type monster suddenly emerged from Nanrong Demon Cave. It was an event that had never happened before. By then, Yan had finally reached level 70, and entered the ranks of humanity's strongest experts, yet the timing felt suspicious. Deep inside, he believed someone had deliberately used the monster to eliminate him, because they could no longer keep him under control. Before dying, Yan made one final move. He used Modify on his resurrection skill, and transformed it into Rebirth. That single change became the reason he was able to return to the past. Now that he has been given a second chance, Yan has no intention of repeating the same mistakes. This time, he trusts no one but himself. He plans to hide his true abilities, quietly grow stronger, protect his family and friends, and stop the city's destruction before it ever happens. Not long after, the bus arrives at the Nanrong City Hunter Association headquarters, where the Awakening Plaza is located. The atmosphere is a mix of excitement and anxiety. Some students are already dreaming about awakening powerful combat classes, while others are quietly praying they don't end up with some useless class that will ruin their future. Meanwhile, almost everyone's attention is focused on Jiang Yan. After all, he's the Academy's top student in both academics and combat. Since he was born with an unusually high amount of mana, many people consider him a once-in-a-generation genius. In their minds, there is no way someone like him awakens anything other than an elite combat class. Of course, not everyone is cheering for him. The school's second-ranked student, Yong Hongwei, has always lived in Yan's shadow and can't stand it. Deep down, he's hoping Yan finally crashes and burns. Soon, the teacher calls Yan forward and announces that he'll be the first student to awaken, hoping his results will give everyone a strong start. The supervisor instructs him to place both hands on the crystal and begin the process. While everyone else is nervous, Yan remains completely calm. Unlike them, he already knows exactly what's about to happen. The students, teachers, and supervisors watch closely as the crystal begins to glow. Most of them are praying for a powerful combat class, while Hongwei is practically wishing for disaster. A bright light suddenly erupts from the crystal before a class panel appears. Just as Yan expected, the result is Repairman, an F-rank craft class. The entire place instantly falls into chaos. The teacher nearly grabs his head in disbelief, unable to understand how the Academy's greatest genius ended up with such a terrible class. Meanwhile, Hongwei and his friends are having the time of their lives. For them, this is the funniest thing they've ever seen. The guy who always stood above everyone else has just awakened what most people consider complete trash. One of the supervisors tries to soften the blow, explaining that Repairman isn't completely useless. He tells Yan that at the very least, he could open a repair shop and earn a decent living fixing equipment. But before anyone can move on, the crystal suddenly starts reacting again. The unexpected reaction immediately grabs everyone's attention because it means Yan is awakening a second class. The teacher becomes excited and explains how incredibly rare dual class awakenings are. People who awaken 2 classes are often considered geniuses among geniuses. Instantly, Everyone starts hoping the second class will redeem the first disaster. Unfortunately, fate decides to troll them one more time. Moments later, the second class appears, and it's Farmer. Not only is it another craft class, but it's also an F-rank class just like Repairman. The entire crowd freezes. Even the people trying to support Yan don't know what to say anymore. Hong Wei almost collapses from laughing because this outcome is somehow even worse than he imagined. Within seconds, everyone labels Yan a complete failure. Pity, sympathy, and disappointment start flying around from every direction as if his future has already been decided. What nobody realizes is that Yan is secretly celebrating. He couldn't care less about how bad the classes look because the real treasure is hidden in their innate skills. The Repairman class comes with Modify, his absurdly broken divine tier ability. This skill allows him to change a single character in the name of a skill, item, or piece of equipment, completely altering what it becomes. If the target belongs to Yan himself, the modification succeeds with a perfect success rate. The Farmer class comes with Growth, a skill that increases plant growth speed by 10%, while also possessing the ability to revive a target, including Yan himself, and fully heal all injuries, though it can't restore spent mana. While everyone else sees two worthless F-rank classes, Yan sees endless potential. He already knows these abilities can become his greatest weapons if used correctly. Looking at the newly updated student rankings, he quietly makes a promise to himself. This time, he'll claim first place on every list and take every resource available. More importantly, he'll become strong enough that nobody can control him again. The people around him may be laughing at his F-rank classes today, but before long, he'll show them exactly why they should be terrified of them. After the awakening ceremony, Yan heads toward the beginner training base, a special facility designed to help newly awakened rookies level up safely. The place is filled with weak demon cave creatures that have been raised and managed by humans, making it the perfect spot for beginners to farm experience. More importantly, anyone who breaks the dungeon's clear time record earns bonus points in the upcoming provincial rookie tournament, which greatly increases their chances of getting into a top university. While most students come here simply to gain a few levels, Yan has a much bigger goal. He plans to crush the record and secure his path to the best university from day one. When he arrives at the entrance, the knight in charge checks his profile and immediately notices something unusual. Yan is a dual-class awakener, a rarity seen only once in thousands of people. However, the excitement quickly disappears when he sees that both classes are F-rank. Concerned, the knight asks if Yan is really planning to challenge the training base alone. Even though this is only the first stage dungeon, it isn't as easy as many people think. The knight suggests teaming up with classmates, but Yan calmly refuses and asks for the beginner equipment instead. In the knight's eyes, Yan is probably struggling to accept reality after falling from the academy's #1 genius to someone carrying two F-rank classes. Trying to help, the knight gives Yan not only an iron sword but also a pair of leather boots that provide an extra 3 points of speed. Yan immediately realizes the man is showing him some kindness. Unfortunately, that kindness is also mixed with a bit of pity. As Yan walks toward the training area, the knight jokingly tells him to call for help if the charging rabbits overwhelm him. Yan simply thanks him for the advice and continues forward. The moment he gets out of sight, he secretly uses Modify on both pieces of equipment, increasing the sword's penetration power and boosting the movement speed of the boots even further. He could have transformed them into something ridiculous like a holy sword or a demonic weapon, but the area is covered with cameras. Having already suffered for exposing his abilities in his previous life, Yan has no intention of making the same mistake twice. The beginner training base is split into 3 sections: the basic area, the advanced area, and the boss area. Most rookies spend their time in the basic area, while stronger trainees challenge the advanced area. Anyone hoping to break the clear time record, however, must reach the boss area and defeat the boss-ranked charging rabbit waiting at the end. These monsters may only be level 1, but they're aggressive little monsters with crystal shells on their heads that they use like battering rams. Yan's goal isn't just to clear the dungeon. He wants to reach level 5 immediately, which means killing at least 100 rabbits. Only then can he unlock access to the next training ground, the Cyclone Wolf Base, a place considered a complete nightmare for beginners, but a perfect leveling spot for someone like him. As soon as the rabbits begin rushing toward him, Yan charges forward without hesitation. One rabbit falls, then another, and then another. The monsters barely stand a chance against him. With every kill, experience points pour in, and Yan quickly realizes things are going even better than expected. In fact, he starts thinking that he might be able to push all the way to level 10 inches a single run. Reaching level 10 would allow him to unlock another skill, one that could help him create extremely powerful monsters in the future. For Yan, this training base isn't just a leveling zone. It's the first step toward becoming powerful enough that nobody can ever control him again. While casually cutting through rabbits, Yan remembers that Hong Wei should be awakening his class around this time. Knowing Hong Wei's personality, he is absolutely certain the guy will come looking for him the moment he gets a chance. Back at the Awakening Plaza, Hong Wei steps onto the platform and prays for a class stronger than Yan's. This time, luck finally smiles on him. The crystal erupts with energy, and he awakens an A-rank combat class called Berserker. Hong Wei nearly explodes from excitement. After years of living in Yan's shadow, he finally believes he has surpassed him. His followers immediately start hyping him up, declaring that the former number 2 has officially become number 1. Since Yan isn't around, they convince themselves that he ran off to hide after learning about Hongwei's awakening. One of Hongwei's lackeys mentions seeing Yan head toward the beginner training base, and Hongwei instantly decides to go find him. Officially, they're going there to help a struggling classmate. Unofficially, they're going to laugh in his face and rub their success all over him. The teacher sees right through their excuse and can only sigh. More than anyone else, he knows how hard Yan has worked over the years. He has watched him study late into the night, train until exhaustion, and endure the maximum pain settings in the mana training room without making a single sound. The teacher simply cannot understand how someone with that level of determination ended up awakening 2 seemingly useless F-rank classes. However, not everyone has given up on Yan. Among the crowd is a purple-haired student named Wang Qingfeng. Unlike Hongwei, Qingfeng doesn't believe Yan's story is over. Ranked just behind Yan in both academics and combat, he has always considered him a rival worth respecting. Ever since watching Yan's determination during their first-year finals, Qingfeng has admired his relentless mindset, so when he hears that Hongwei is heading to the training base, he decides to follow along. Not because he wants to mock Yan, but because if anyone is going to mess with his rival, it certainly won't be Hongwei. In fact, Qingfeng is already prepared to throw hands if Hongwei tries anything stupid. Meanwhile, inside the training base, Yan has already slaughtered more than 100 charging rabbits. The experience points are great, but his body is paying a heavy price for it. After all, he's still a rookie with a weak physique. Even so, Yan isn't worried. At this point, only one enemy remains, the Rabbit King. Once that monster goes down, he'll clear the area and finally reach level 5. The Rabbit King is a level 5 monster with an elemental crystal shell on its head, allowing it to deal elemental damage through its powerful ramming attacks. Normally, a level 4 rookie fighting it head-on while injured would be asking for a beating. Luckily for Yan, he has no intention of fighting fair. As the Rabbit King charges forward using its innate skill, Flame Headbutt, Yan calmly activates Modify. In an instant, he changes the skill's name from Flame Headbutt to Flame Head Burst. The difference is small, but the result is absolutely brutal. Instead of empowering its charge attack, the skill causes the crystal on its own head to explode. Before the Rabbit King can even reach him, the crystal detonates, instantly blowing the monster apart and ending the fight on the spot. Just like that, Yan successfully clears the dungeon and reaches level 5. At the same time, an announcement appears on the public notice board. Jiang Yan has broken the Charging Rabbit elite record with a clear time of only 36 minutes. Everyone who sees it is stunned, because the previous record was over an hour. The students immediately explode into discussion, while Hongwei refuses to accept reality. In his mind, there is no way Yan could achieve something like that after awakening 2 F-rank classes. The only explanation is cheating. Convinced that he's uncovered some kind of fraud, Hongwei becomes even more determined to track Yan down and expose him. Meanwhile, Yan couldn't care less about what people think. After repairing his injuries with his skill, he immediately sets his sights on the next challenge, the Whirlwind Wolf Base. In his previous life, the Wolf King caused him plenty of trouble. This time, however, Yan has every intention of collecting some payback along with the experience points. Before long, he arrives at the Whirlwind Wolf Base. Compared to the Rabbit area, this place is on a completely different level. The regular wolves range from levels 6 to 9, while the Wolf King sits at level 10. Most freshmen at this point are only between levels 1 and 5, meaning entering this place alone is practically suicide. That's exactly why the rewards are so valuable. Anyone capable of clearing the base gains an enormous amount of experience. Yan knows that if he defeats the Wolf King, he can jump straight to level 10 inches one shot. For ordinary rookies, reaching level 10 could take around 10 days of grinding. Clearing this base once can accomplish the same thing instantly. More importantly, level 10 unlocks a second innate skill and grants permission to train independently in the wilderness. Both are critical steps on Yan's path to becoming stronger. At the entrance, he encounters a knight who is the complete opposite of the previous one. This guy doesn't bother hiding his contempt. After looking at Yan's profile, he asks if he's seriously planning to challenge the base alone. The knight points out that even talented freshmen around levels 8 and 9 usually enter with full 6-person teams. He even brings up a former genius who awakened an A-rank class and attempted a solo run, only to get injured so badly that he couldn't even participate in the college entrance exams. In the knight's eyes, if that genius failed, someone with 2 F-rank classes doesn't stand a chance. Yan simply thanks him for the warning and keeps walking. The knight immediately makes it clear that he wasn't actually concerned. If Yan wants to throw his life away, that's his problem. Yan enters the training base without hesitation and charges directly toward the wolves. Watching from above, the knight assumes he's about to witness a rookie get ripped apart. Instead, he watches something completely different. Yan tears through the wolves one after another, as if they're nothing more than training dummies. Sword strikes flash across the battlefield, monsters drop left and right, and the most shocking part is that Yan isn't even relying on his innate skills. The knight's confidence slowly crumbles as sweat forms on his forehead. The guy he just mocked is casually mowing down monsters that should be overwhelming a rookie. Not long afterward, a mountain of wolf corpses begins piling up around Yan. At this point, even the knight has no choice but to admit the truth. Yan is an absolute monster. Remembering all the trash he talked earlier, the knight suddenly decides it might be best to disappear before Yan comes back and recognizes him. Meanwhile, Yan sits on top of the corpse pile to recover. Despite his success, the battle hasn't been easy. If not for his regeneration ability constantly healing him, he would have died several times already. The wolves are far stronger and more dangerous than the rabbits ever were. By now, Yan has successfully reached level 9, but every level came with pain, injuries, and non-stop fighting. Even when his wounds heal, the pain never disappears. Still, Yan doesn't complain. He already knows changing his fate won't come for free. Now that the wolf pack has been wiped out, only one target remains. Standing between him and level 10 is the Wolf King itself. Just then, the Wolf King finally appears in the distance. This level 10 monster is covered in fur that naturally resonates with the wind element, making it far more dangerous than the ordinary wolves Yan fought earlier. After checking its abilities, Yan discovers that the Wolf King possesses a skill called Windblade Claw. Unfortunately, after analyzing the skill, he realizes there isn't much room for him to use Modify. In fact, if he tries forcing a change, there's a good chance he could accidentally make the skill even stronger. For a moment, Yan seriously considers his options. Then he suddenly pulls off his shirt, revealing the physique he built through years of brutal training, and decides that if tricks won't work, he'll settle this the old-fashioned way. After all, aside from his skills, he's still the #1 student in both academics and combat. Without wasting another second, Yan charges straight at the Wolf King, ready to prove exactly why he earned that title. Meanwhile, Hongwei and his group are having a much rougher time. Their attempt at conquering the Charging Rabbit training base ended in complete disaster. They barely escaped with their lives, and only survived because they requested emergency assistance. The knight in charge immediately scolds them for recklessly entering the advanced area when they should have been training in the basic zone like normal rookies. Deep down, Hongwei is furious. Even with an entire party backing him up, he couldn't reach the boss area. Yet somehow, Yan not only cleared it, but also set a record. No matter how much he thinks about it, he refuses to believe it happened legitimately. Convinced that Yan cheated somehow, Hongwei vents his frustration by slamming a fist into one of his unfortunate lackeys. As if that humiliation wasn't enough, the public notice board suddenly lights up once again. A new announcement appears, informing everyone that the Whirlwind Wolves training base has been cleared in a record time of 58 minutes by Jiang Yan. The crowd instantly erupts in shock. Hongwei's followers can barely process what they're seeing, but instead of accepting reality, Hongwei becomes even more obsessed with bringing Yan down. He immediately tells his lackeys that they're heading to the wolf base under the excuse of congratulating Yan. In reality, he plans to ruin Yan's reputation no matter what it takes. At this point, proving himself better than Yan has basically become an obsession. Back inside the training base, Yan has finally achieved the goal he came for. He successfully reaches level 10 and unlocks his second innate skills. From the repairman class, he obtains a skill called durability, while the farmer class grants him plant grafting. The moment he sees plant grafting, a smile immediately appears on his face because this is exactly the skill he was waiting for. Without hesitation, he activates Modify and changes plant grafting into universal grafting. Just like that, another ridiculously overpowered ability falls into his hands. Universal grafting allows him to combine the genes of two completely different species and create an entirely new life form. The resulting creature can end up either weaker or stronger than its parents. Right now, Yan only has a 10% chance of producing a superior species, but that percentage will increase as the skill levels up. Future upgrades will also allow him to graft more species together and further improve the odds of creating something extraordinary. Although the skill comes with restrictions, Yan knows just how terrifying it can become. For example, combining two already powerful A-rank monsters could potentially produce an even stronger S-rank monster. Then, by using a Beast Tamer skill scroll to establish a contract, he could turn that creature into a completely loyal battle companion. Yan remembers how the powerful figures in his previous life took advantage of abilities like this for their own benefit. This time, however, everything he creates will belong to him and him alone. After sorting out his newly acquired abilities, Yan finally prepares to leave. Looking back at everything he accomplished in a single day, even he is impressed. Not only did he shatter records and reach level 10, but he also managed to obtain a valuable magic crystal. These crystals have an extremely low drop rate and can grant powerful effects when embedded into equipment. Unfortunately, anything dropped inside the training grounds belongs to the Hunter Association. Still, Yan isn't disappointed. Now that he's level 10, he can finally enter the wild regions of the Demon Cave. Out there, every crystal and material he finds will belong entirely to him. For someone who spent his previous life being controlled by others, the thought of finally becoming financially independent feels pretty damn good. Unfortunately, reality quickly reminds him that he still has problems. The claw wound on his chest suddenly flares up with intense pain. Since the injury isn't serious enough to kill him, his regeneration ability refuses to activate. To make matters worse, he doesn't have enough money to receive proper treatment at a hospital. After thinking it through, Yan arrives at a ridiculous but practical solution. The easiest way to fully heal would be to kill himself and trigger his revival ability. The problem is that doing something like that in front of the knights would immediately attract suspicion suspicion. As a result, he decides he simply needs to find a quiet location where nobody can see him before carrying out his rather insane healing plan. With that in mind, Yan puts his shirt back on and heads toward the exit. However, the moment he steps outside, he freezes. Instead of finding a quiet path, he finds a massive crowd waiting for him. Students from all over have gathered after hearing about his record-breaking achievements. Even upperclassmen have shown up to see the guy who shattered the training base records. The peaceful escape Yan was hoping for has clearly gone straight out the window. Seeing the massive crowd gathered outside, Yan immediately realizes he has a problem. There are simply too many eyes on him. In his current condition, using revive isn't an option. If he takes more damage and suddenly recovers in front of everyone, people are definitely going to notice that something strange is going on. His biggest concern becomes finding a way to get rid of the crowd without exposing one of his most important secrets. Just as he's thinking about this, he suddenly feels warmth spreading through his body. The injuries that had been tormenting him moments ago begin healing on their own. Looking up in surprise, he discovers the source. An S-rank support profession user known as the Holy Angel is healing him. The crowd immediately erupts in excitement. When everyone turns to see who cast the healing spell, they discover it was a girl named Kexin from the Yao family, one of the great clans. The students are completely stunned. Nobody expected someone from such a powerful family to appear here personally. Yan is equally shocked, though for a different reason. From his perspective, Kexin just saved him from having to secretly kill himself for medical treatment. He walks over and sincerely thanks her for healing all of his injuries. In return, he promises that if her equipment ever breaks in the future, he'll personally handle the repairs. Deep down, Yan is also thinking ahead. An S-rank healer is exactly the kind of ally anyone would want around during dangerous missions. Kexin accepts his thanks and casually says she'll look forward to the day her equipment needs repairing. Unfortunately, the peaceful moment doesn't last long. Right as the conversation ends, Hongwei barges into the scene and starts shouting at the top of his lungs. According to him, everyone is being fooled by a fraud. He loudly accuses Yan of cheating to achieve his speedrun records and insists that there's no way the results are legitimate. The moment he reveals that Yan awakened 2 F-rank craft classes, many people in the crowd are caught off guard. Everyone knows that craft classes are supposed to have almost no combat ability. Hongwei keeps pushing his argument, claiming that clearing training bases solo while setting new records is completely impossible for someone like Yan. Hongwei then spins an even crazier story. He argues that the only explanation is that Yan used some ridiculously powerful equipment. However, that theory creates another problem, because everyone knows Yan comes from a poor background. So Hongwei boldly claims that if Yan really had access to expensive gear, then he must have been pretending to be poor all along in order to scam the school out of financial aid. As soon as those words leave his mouth, the crowd's attitude starts shifting. Some people begin questioning Yan's achievements, while others quietly wonder if Hongwei might actually be right. Seeing the situation getting worse, Yan calmly asks Hongwei if he wants proof that no cheating took place. Hongwei immediately agrees and demands a fight. His condition is simple. Yan has to remove his equipment and fight him directly. If he wins, then everyone will know the records were real. Kexin immediately steps in and tells Yan not to fall for such an obvious provocation. In her eyes, he doesn't owe anybody an explanation. But Yan simply thanks her for the concern before accepting the challenge anyway. The reason is simple. Hongwei has been a nuisance for far too long, and Yan would rather deal with him now than keep letting him create problems later. Seeing his challenge accepted, Hongwei becomes incredibly confident. He unleashes his berserker aura and starts acting like the fight is already over. With a smug expression, he declares that Yan is making the biggest mistake of his life and promises to knock all of his teeth out. Moments later, he activates the berserker skill itself. The ability consumes 1% of his health every minute, while boosting his battle lust and increasing his strength, agility, and defense by 30%. Yan can't help but find the whole thing amusing. He teases Hongwei, saying that he certainly talks a lot for someone who's about to embarrass himself. He even wonders whether Hongwei can keep up that confidence for a full minute. Deep down, Yan finds it ridiculous that Hongwei believes an A-rank class automatically guarantees victory. As he takes up a fighting stance, Yan prepares to teach him a lesson he's needed for years. True strength doesn't come from a class ranking alone, it comes from the person using it. At the same time, Yan is relieved that he restored all of his modified equipment back to normal before leaving the training grounds. That means nobody can inspect his gear and discover anything suspicious. To make things even clearer, Yan removes the leather boots he was given and stands there without a single piece of equipment on him. Hongwei sees this and becomes even more excited, convinced the advantage now belongs entirely to him. Without wasting any time, he rushes forward and throws a punch straight at Yan's head. To his shock, Yan effortlessly dodges it. Hongwei refuses to accept what just happened and immediately launches another attack, then another, and then another. Soon he's throwing punches non-stop, desperately trying to land even a single hit. The problem is that every strike looks painfully slow in Yan's eyes. He casually slips past each attack as if he's been watching them in slow motion. While dodging, Yan admits that the A-rank berserker class is definitely impressive. However, he points out one very important detail. An attack only matters if it actually connects. Swinging wildly without thinking is nothing more than a waste of stamina. Yan then reminds Hongwei that they've spent the last 3 years together. During that entire time, Yan has already figured out exactly how Hongwei fights. Meanwhile, Hongwei has never once managed to understand Yan's style. Before Hongwei can process those words, Yan suddenly launches a counterattack. His fist slams directly into Hongwei's right torso, and a wave of pain instantly tears through the berserker's body. Hongwei crashes to the ground in agony while Yan calmly stands over him and reminds everyone that he's still the top dog. The crowd is left speechless. Nobody can understand how a student with 2 F-rank craft classes just defeated an A-rank berserker so easily. As for Yan, he feels no need to stay any longer. Hongwei has already been put in his place, and there are more important things to focus on. His next destination will be the wilderness beyond the training grounds, but before heading out there, he needs proper equipment. Thankfully, with his modify skill, obtaining good gear won't be difficult in the long run. The immediate problem is money. Since he returned all of the association's equipment, he'll have to buy his own starting gear. The moment he checks his wallet, however, reality hits him like a truck. For all his talent and future plans, he's still completely broke. Just as Yan is thinking about his money problems, he suddenly senses a punch coming from behind. His body reacts almost instantly, and he blocks the attack with ease before it can reach him. Turning around, he finally sees the culprit, and immediately realizes there's no real danger. The attacker is none other than Wang Qingfeng, his longtime rival. Qingfeng grins and praises him for stopping the punch so casually, saying it's no surprise considering Yan has dominated both academics and combat rankings for 3 straight years. The two soon grab a drink together, and Yan asks if Qingfeng was present during his fight with Hongwei. Qingfeng confirms that he watched the whole thing. In fact, he admits that if Yan had somehow lost, he would have stepped in and beaten Hongwei up himself. To Qingfeng, Hongwei has never been worth paying attention to. The only person he truly considers a rival is Yan. Hearing this, Yan brings up something that's been bothering him for years. During the first-year finals, Qingfeng suddenly surrendered, and since then, he has continued giving up whenever they ended up facing each other. Yan points out that he knows exactly why Qingfeng does it. According to Yan, Qingfeng has been intentionally handing him the top scholarship every year. As the son of a wealthy family, Qingfeng doesn't need the scholarship money, while Yan desperately does. Qingfeng immediately tries to deny it, and jokingly claims that he only surrendered because Yan's eyes looked too scary back then. Yan obviously doesn't buy that excuse for even a second. Since the topic is already on the table, he decides to ask a more important question. If the two of them meet during this year's National Rookie Tournament, is Qingfeng planning to surrender again? This time, Qingfeng's answer comes without hesitation. Absolutely not. He promises that if they face each other at the tournament, he'll fight with everything he's got. No holding back, no surrendering, and no freebies. Hearing that, Yan smiles and raises his drink. The two rivals make a toast, both looking forward to finally settling things properly on equal footing. It is one of those rare moments where neither of them needs to say much, because they already understand each other perfectly. Right after that, Qingfeng suddenly tosses a card toward Yan. When Yan catches it, he discovers that it contains 2,000 credits. Qingfeng casually explains that he wants to purchase Yan's Whirlwind Wolf speedrun strategy. Before leaving, he reminds Yan to send the strategy over as soon as possible. Yan agrees, without any complaints. Once Qingfeng leaves, Yan lets out a sigh of relief. He knows this was Qingfeng's way of helping him without making it obvious, and deep down, Yan feels like he owes him one. Still, at least his biggest problem has been temporarily solved. For the first time all day, he actually has some money in his pocket. Now, carrying 2,000 credits, Yan immediately heads toward the stalls to see what he can find. Before long, he arrives at the cheapest black market he knows. Most people don't expect to find anything valuable there, because nearly everything sold in the area is basic equipment. However, Yan knows from experience that hidden treasures occasionally slip through the cracks. He starts browsing the stalls, until one particular weapon catches his attention. Displayed proudly on a merchant's stand is a demon shade saber, embedded with a whirlwind wolf magic crystal. The seller quickly explains the weapon's background. The saber is E+ rank equipment, forged from meteor iron and fused with a level 5 whirlwind wolf magic crystal, allowing it to unleash the whirlwind skill. Unfortunately, its durability isn't at its peak anymore. Because of that, the merchant is only asking 18,000 credits. If the weapon were fully restored, it could easily sell for at least 25,000. Yan isn't surprised by the price at all. Expensive equipment has always been out of reach for him. Instead of focusing on the saber, his attention drifts toward what looks like an ordinary sword nearby. Curious, he asks for its price. The merchant tells him it's an azure steel sword worth 1,500 credits. The weapon itself is only E rank and was forged from standard azure steel, making it far less impressive than the demon shade saber sitting beside it. However, the moment Yan hears the name, his interest immediately spikes. He then proposes a deal. If he manages to repair the damaged demon shade saber, will the merchant give him the azure steel sword in return? The seller becomes visibly interested and asks whether Yan can actually pull off something like that. With a small smile, Yan activates his newly acquired durability skill. Looking at the merchant, he calmly says there's only one way to find out. What the merchant doesn't realize is that Yan's true target was never the expensive demon shade saber. From the very beginning, the item he wanted was the seemingly seemingly ordinary azure steel sword. The reason is simple. Once that sword falls into his hands, he can use modify on it, and if everything goes according to plan, that plain E-rank weapon will transform into a legendary blade that most people couldn't even dream of obtaining. The seller looks at Yan with a doubtful expression and asks whether he actually possesses a durability-related class. Restoring a weapon's durability is notoriously difficult, and one mistake can make the situation even worse. Yan calmly explains that he's a repairman from an F-rank craft class. Hearing that only makes the seller even more skeptical. He reveals that he himself has a craft class as well, specifically a D-rank blacksmith class. As someone who works with weapons every day, he knows exactly how complicated durability restoration can be. According to him, even with his superior class, he still can't guarantee that he could successfully restore the Demon Shade Saber. Since Yan is still a student, the seller decides to give him some advice before letting him proceed. He explains that once a weapon's durability reaches 0, it is effectively destroyed. Repairing it with a durability skill isn't as simple as patching cracks. The user has to sense the weapon's internal structure, understand the flow of magic within it, and then reconstruct everything from the inside out. If the process fails, the weapon's durability won't improve. Instead, it will drop even further. The seller then makes the stakes very clear. If Yan messes this up, he'll owe him 18,000 credits. It is a warning that would make most people immediately back away from the deal. Interestingly, Kexen is also wandering around the market at this time, and she quietly watches the entire exchange unfold. She understands that the seller isn't exaggerating. In her family's guild, even experienced B-rank professionals struggle when it comes to restoring damaged weapons. For most people, what Yan is attempting would be considered reckless, but Yan himself couldn't be more relaxed. In his previous life, he spent years repairing equipment for some of the strongest individuals in the world. The weapons and artifacts they handed him were often A-rank, or even S-rank treasures. Compared to those, fixing a damaged E+ rank saber feels almost trivial. The real reason he's so confident is because of the effort he put in during his previous life. Most people who awaken an F-rank repairman class lose hope almost immediately and give up on improving themselves. Yan was different. Ever since awakening, he constantly pushed himself to master the durability skill. He trained harder than anyone else because he always wanted to surpass those around him. After being reborn, all of that experience came back with him, turning what most people considered a useless skill into one of his greatest advantages. That's why he doesn't see repairing this saber as some impossible challenge. As Yan begins working on the Demon Shade Saber, the people watching nearby slowly start realizing that something unusual is happening. His movements are smooth, precise, and incredibly confident. Even Kexen starts looking at him differently. Earlier, when Yan promised he could repair her equipment in the future, she wasn't completely sure whether he was serious. Watching him now, she finally understands that he wasn't joking at all. Before long, Yan completes the repair and hands the saber back to the seller. The seller immediately inspects the weapon, and the more he checks it, the wider his eyes become. The damage is completely gone. Not only was the repair successful, but the workmanship is far beyond what he expected. The seller honestly admits that he completely misjudged Yan. He praises him as the real deal, and, honoring their agreement, hands over the azure steel sword. Yan happily accepts it, but internally, he's far more excited than he lets on. The Demon Shade Saber was never his real target. From the very beginning, everything was about obtaining this seemingly ordinary azure steel sword. The moment the sword lands in his hands, Yan uses Modify. With a single change, he alters its name from Azure Steel Sword to Azure Jar Sword, a legendary blade from ancient times. According to legend, this was once the weapon carried by a war god who effortlessly smashed through enemy armies and broke enemy lines wherever he went. Just like that, an ordinary E-rank weapon is transformed into something far more valuable. Thanks to this, Yan no longer needs to spend the 2,000 credits he just earned. University tuition is expensive, and he knows he'll need every bit of money he can save. On top of that, Yan can't stop thinking about his younger sister. Ever since their father passed away, life hasn't been easy for her. He knows that in the future she will become someone truly remarkable, but right now she's still a lonely shut-in who struggles with the world around her. Before heading off to university, Yan wants to leave enough money behind to make sure she can live comfortably. The thought only strengthens his determination to become stronger and wealthier as quickly as possible. Just as he's preparing to leave, a familiar voice calls out from behind him. Turning around, Yan discovers that it's Kexen. She gets straight to the point and asks whether she can hire him. Then she casually offers 50,000 credits for a single job. Yan is naturally interested and asks what exactly she wants. Kexen explains that she's currently only level 3 and wants Yan to carry her all the way to level 10. Hearing that, Yan immediately agrees. Kexen is pleased by the answer, while Yan is secretly amazed that another pile of money has practically fallen into his lap. A moment later, Kexen suddenly rushes over to the seller and announces that she wants to purchase the Demon Shade Saber. Since the weapon has now been restored to full durability, the seller proudly informs her that the price is 25,000 credits. Without hesitation, Kexen pulls out the money directly from a storage ring. The seller nearly loses his mind on the spot. Anyone carrying that kind of cash around so casually is clearly from an absurdly wealthy family. He immediately completes the transaction and hands over the weapon. Meanwhile, Yan is already considering how useful Kexen's support abilities will be for his future plans. Just then, Kexen walks back toward him and does something completely unexpected. She holds out the newly purchased Demon Shade Saber and tells him that it's a gift to celebrate their first meeting. Before Yan can even think about refusing, she firmly tells him not to return it. Yan is genuinely stunned. He never imagined she'd spend 25,000 credits on a weapon, only to hand it over moments later. In that instant, Yan realizes that Kexen isn't just wealthy, she's also incredibly generous and well-mannered. He gratefully accepts the gift and thanks her sincerely. As for Kexen, she simply has a feeling that Yan is destined for greatness. In her eyes, helping him now is an investment that will pay off in the future. With their business settled and their partnership officially beginning, Yan suggests that they stop wasting time and head straight to the rookie training grounds. A short while later, Yan and Kexen arrive at the Charging Beast training grounds. Equipped with his new weapons, Yan tears through the monsters like they're made of paper, while Kexen stays behind him, providing support and healing whenever necessary. The combination turns out to be ridiculously effective. Not only does Kexen level up rapidly, but the two of them also manage to set a brand new clear time record for the entire training ground. As if that wasn't impressive enough, they head over to the Whirlwind Wolf base afterward and break that record too. News spreads quickly, and people are left completely stunned. The shock only grows when everyone learns that Yan's partner is Kexen from the Yao family. After all, her father is the chairman of the Dali Merchant Guild, one of the top 10 trading houses in the nation. By the time Kexen reaches level 9, exhaustion is starting to catch up with her. She suggests taking a break, but Yan tells her to rest while walking instead. According to him, her current stats are more than enough to keep going. Rather than getting discouraged, Kexen becomes even more motivated. She admits that she wants to keep pushing herself just like Yan. After all, she awakened an S-rank support class, and she doesn't want to waste that talent. Meanwhile, Yan has already climbed all the way to level 13. Looking ahead, he announces their next destination, the Netherflame Boar Base, the only rookie training ground officially rated as S-level danger. When they arrive, the knight guarding the entrance immediately recognizes Yan. He knows all about the records Yan has been breaking and warns him that this dungeon is on an entirely different level. The Netherflame Boar King is far more dangerous than the Charging Rabbit King or the Whirlwind Wolf King. Most rookies wouldn't even think about entering. Yan, however, remains completely unfazed. He simply replies that greater risks bring greater rewards. In his eyes, anyone who refuses to take risks will never reach greater heights. The truth is that Yan isn't nearly as worried as he sounds, because he has Kexen beside him. Having an S-rank support class backing him up changes everything. Seeing that Yan has already made up his mind, the knight reluctantly allows them to enter and wishes them luck. Yan gladly accepts, because he knows they're definitely going to need some. After walking deeper into the dungeon, Kexen starts getting confused. There isn't a single monster in sight. Yan explains that this dungeon is different from the previous ones. There are no ordinary monsters here at all. The entire dungeon contains only one enemy, the boss itself. The moment Kexen hears that, she nearly panics. Before she can ask any more questions, a gigantic figure appears in the distance. The sight alone almost makes her pass out. Meanwhile, Yan's eyes practically light up. He immediately draws both of his swords because, for the first time today, he's looking at an opponent that actually seems challenging. The monster standing before them is the level 15 Spectral Wild Boar King. It's a terrifying magical beast from the demon caves that possesses a violent temperament and a skill called Ghost Flame Charge. Ghostly flames flow continuously from its body, generating temperatures of nearly 200 degrees Celsius. As the monster approaches, Yan orders Kexen to keep Holy Light active on him so he can maintain his HP throughout the battle. Kexen immediately activates her Holy Angel skills, and with her support in place, Yan charges forward. His plan is simple. Against a monster this dangerous, striking first is the safest option. Leaping into the air, Yan attempts to use gravity and rotational force to deliver a powerful slash to the boar's neck. On paper, it looks like a brilliant opening move. Unfortunately, the Boar King isn't nearly as dumb as the previous bosses. At the last second, it jumps and blocks the attack with its tusks. The failed attack immediately tells Yan something important. This boss is significantly smarter than the others. Realizing that the same trick won't work twice, he abandons the strategy. Instead, he decides to make use of the opportunity to secretly activate Modify while he's airborne. More importantly, he wants to do it where Kexen can't easily see what he's doing. Using Modify, Yan changes his steel sword into the steel sword. Normally, the steel sword is nothing special, but the modified version is a completely different story. The transformation isn't perfect because his current level only allows him to create a level 10 replica of the legendary Cyan steel sword rather than the genuine artifact. Even so, the replica is still absurdly powerful. It can cut through iron as easily as slicing through dirt and can tear through armor with little resistance. Yan isn't disappointed by the result because he never expected his ability to create divine artifacts out of thin air. For his current situation, this weapon is more than enough. With his enhanced weapon in hand, Yan immediately launches another attack. One slash is all it takes to cut clean through one of the Boar King's tusks. The monster instantly flies into a rage. At the same time, Yan quickly changes the weapon back before Kexen notices anything suspicious. Unfortunately for him, Kexen already saw enough to be shocked. She finds it impossible to believe that an ordinary E-rank weapon could sever the hardest part of the monster's body with a single strike. After thinking it through, she arrives at a completely wrong conclusion. Rather than suspecting the weapon, she decides the feat must be the result of Yan's overwhelming strength. In her mind, someone capable of breaking so many records, despite having 2 F-rank classes, must simply be stronger than most people with A-rank classes. While Kexen is busy creating increasingly ridiculous explanations in her head, Yan notices the strange expression on her face and immediately guesses what's happening. Before she can get any deeper into her imagination, he calls her back to reality and reminds her to keep using holy light. He points out that if she doesn't contribute enough, she might miss out on the experience when the boss dies. Thankful for the reminder, Kexen quickly resumes supporting him. Meanwhile, Yan starts preparing for the final phase of the fight. He considers modifying the name of his demon sword for a decisive attack, but after running through several possibilities in his mind, he decides against it. Choosing the wrong modification could easily backfire or fail entirely. Just then, the Boar King activates Netherflame Charge and comes barreling toward him like a giant flaming blue missile. The attack immediately pulls Yan's attention back to the battle. After a brief moment of thought, he comes up with a much better idea. He suddenly tells Kexen to close her eyes. Completely confused, she asks why. Yan simply tells her to trust him because she probably won't be able to handle what she's about to see. Thinking something gruesome is about to happen, Kexen obediently shuts her eyes without asking any more questions. As the enormous boar charges forward, Yan activates Modify once again. With a simple change, Netherflame Charge becomes Netherflame Drift. The effect is immediate and absolutely ridiculous. Instead of charging forward at terrifying speed, the Boar King suddenly begins drifting slowly through the air, like it has forgotten how movement works. Even the monster itself seems confused by what just happened. Yan can't help but appreciate the absurdity of the situation before deciding to finish things. He charges forward, modifies the Azure Sword into the legendary Azure Jar Sword mid-attack, and delivers a devastating slash directly across the monster's neck. The strike instantly ends the battle. A system notification immediately appears, announcing the death of the Boar King and rewarding Yan with a massive amount of experience. Thanks to defeating the strongest rookie boss monster, Yan jumps from level 13 all the way to level 15. Even he is surprised by gaining 2 levels at once. Meanwhile, Kexen is still standing there with her eyes tightly shut. When the reward notifications start flooding in, she discovers that she has jumped all the way to level 12, gaining 3 levels in one go. The sudden increase leaves her completely stunned and wondering whether Yan actually managed to defeat the monster. After changing his weapon back to normal, Yan walks over to her. He originally told Kexen to close her eyes so she wouldn't discover the truth behind his abilities, but he's honestly impressed that she listened without hesitation. In fact, the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes she's practically the perfect teammate. She's obedient, incredibly rich, possesses an S-rank healing class, and doesn't ask too many questions. Yan is already considering bringing her along whenever future dungeons require party members. A few minutes later, he tells Kexen that she can open her eyes. The moment she does, she sees the massive corpse of the Boar King lying on the ground and freezes in disbelief. She genuinely can't comprehend how Yan managed to defeat such a terrifying monster almost entirely by himself. As Yan prepares to leave, Kexen quietly watches him with admiration. In her eyes, he's not only talented, but also reliable and trustworthy. Before he can walk away, Kexen stops him and hands over his payment. Then she surprises him again by including a bonus gift. Yan's eyes widen the moment he sees what it is: a storage ring. These rings are incredibly valuable because they're made from crystals containing permanent spatial magic. They completely ignore normal physical limitations and can store huge amounts of items. Even the smallest storage rings sell for hundreds of thousands of credits. Realizing how expensive the gift is, Yan immediately tries to refuse it. Kexen, however, insists. She points out that Yan helped her gain 2 extra levels beyond their original agreement, so she considers the gift justified. More importantly, she believes someone with Yan's talent will benefit from it far more than she will. After thinking about it carefully, Yan realizes she's right. He plans to head into the wild regions of the Demon Cave soon, and a storage ring will be invaluable for carrying loot and materials. In the end, he accepts the gift. In return, he promises that if Kexen ever needs his help in the future, he'll do whatever he can as long as it doesn't violate his principles. Satisfied with the arrangement, the two finish their business and finally head out together. Meanwhile, outside the training grounds, discussions about the freshman rankings are spreading everywhere. People are surprised to discover that the gap between the top contenders is incredibly small. The reason is simple. This year's batch of rookies is stacked with talent. Nanrong City produced an unusual number of A-rank and S-rank combat classes, and many people are already calling it one of the strongest generations in years. The biggest source of attention is Nanrong 7th High, where rumors claim that 3 separate S-rank combat classes awakened in the same year. Just hearing that is enough to make people realize how fierce the competition is going to be. Not long afterward, Yan and Kexen arrive to check the rankings themselves. Although Yan is currently sitting at number 1, he isn't celebrating too early. He knows that several monsters are right behind him and that they'll probably catch up sooner rather than later. The first is Li Yufeng, the top student of Nanrong 3rd High in both academics and combat. He awakened an S-rank Sword Saint class and is considered nearly unbeatable in close-range combat. The second is Zhang Hong, the number 1 martial artist from Nanrong 9th High, who awakened the A-rank Blazing Fistmaster class. His offensive power is terrifying. The third is Lu Yuan, an S-rank Gale assassin whose class specializes in high-speed movement, elemental abilities, and deadly ambushes. Looking at those names, Yan can't help but remember his previous life. Every single one of these people went on to become famous geniuses with brilliant careers. They were the kind of talents everyone talked about. This time, however, Yan has no intention of standing behind them. His goal is to surpass every one of them and claim the number 1 position among Nanrong City's top 100 freshmen. He knows that sooner or later, these people will become his rivals. Instead of feeling intimidated though, Yan is actually looking forward to facing them. The stronger the competition, the more satisfying it will be when he stands at the top. For now, however, rankings can wait. The person occupying Yan's thoughts is his younger sister. In his previous life, shortly after awakening his overpowered abilities, he was taken away and treated like a tool by powerful people. Because of that, he never got to return home. Everything he learned about his sister afterward came through secondhand information. They never saw each other again. He does remember, however, that she eventually awakened an A-rank combat class and became someone extraordinary. Thinking about all the years they lost fills him with regret. This time, Yan is determined to protect her and make up for everything he couldn't do before. After saying goodbye to Kexen, who reminds him to include her in future dungeon runs, Yan finally heads home. The moment he arrives, a flood of memories hits him. This is the place he once took for granted, yet after being taken away in his previous life, he never stepped inside it again. Upon entering, he is greeted by his younger sister, Yao. She invites him to eat, and Yan quietly observes her. Right now, she's only 15 years old and still in 9th grade. Ever since their parents died in a demon cave 3 years ago, she has become painfully shy and withdrawn. Before that tragedy, she had been cheerful, energetic, and full of life. Losing their parents changed everything. While they eat together, Yao suddenly drops a bombshell. She calmly announces that she plans to quit school. The statement immediately catches Yan off guard. He knows exactly how talented she is. She's at the top of her grade in both academics and combat, so dropping out makes absolutely no sense. The high school entrance exams are approaching, and with her results, she should have a bright future ahead of her. Unable to understand her decision, Yan asks why she would even consider such a thing. Yao explains that she doesn't think she can achieve great things the way Yan can. She has been paying attention to the city rankings and saw that her brother is already among the top students. In her eyes, Yan works harder than anyone and is destined to become someone important in the future. She even believes that he'll eventually become the kind of person who protects the world. The problem is that she doesn't view herself the same way. Despite having incredible grades and talent, her confidence has been shattered over the years. She quietly says that she'd rather start working and help cover their living expenses instead. Yan listens to the explanation, but he doesn't buy it for a second. The excuse sounds too convenient. He knows his sister well enough to realize there's another reason behind this sudden decision. Just as he's about to press her further, a familiar visitor walks through the door. The newcomer is Uncle Quan. The moment he notices the tense atmosphere in the room, he hesitates awkwardly before entering. Soon afterward, he starts talking about his struggling business and apologizing for bothering them again. It turns out that Quan owns Aquan Emergency Microloan Company. Over the past 2 years, Yan and Yao have repeatedly borrowed money from his company to survive. Looking at Yao's expression, Yan immediately pieces everything together. Quan must have visited earlier, reminding her about their debt. Combined with seeing Yan's ranking and knowing how expensive college will be, she probably decided to sacrifice her own future to reduce the burden on him. Rather than letting her brother struggle to pay tuition, she was prepared to abandon her education entirely. Realizing this, Yan immediately asks Quan to calculate exactly how much they owe. After doing the math, Quan tells him that the total comes to around 43,000 credits before interest. The man clearly feels uncomfortable asking for repayment because he knows how difficult their situation has been, but his own company is also facing problems. Without saying much, Yan pulls out the 50,000 credits he received from Kexen and hands the money over. He tells Quan to keep the extra amount as interest on the loan. The room instantly falls silent. Quan stares at the money in complete disbelief, while Yao is equally shocked and can't understand where her brother suddenly got such a huge amount of cash. Yan wants to explain everything and reassure her that she no longer needs to worry, but he also doesn't want to have that conversation in front of someone else. Fortunately, Quan quickly picks up on the situation. Understanding that the siblings need privacy, he excuses himself and tells them not to hesitate to call him if they ever need help before quietly leaving the house. As soon as Uncle Quan leaves, Yao immediately turns her attention toward Yan and asks the question that's been bothering her the entire time. She wants to know where he got 50,000 credits from. Given how suddenly the money appeared, she's worried that her brother might have gotten involved in something shady. Yan can't help but smile at the concern. He gently pats her on the head and reassures her that every credit he just paid back is completely clean. There are no scams, no illegal deals, and no hidden problems. He tells her to stop worrying so much because everything is under control now. Yan then starts talking about his future plans with complete confidence. He boldly declares that he's going to become the #1 student on Nanrong City's top 100 rankings. Not stopping there, he also announces that he's going to take first place in the city's college entrance examination and claim the massive 300,000 credit prize awarded to the top scorer. To most people, those words would sound incredibly arrogant, but Yao knows her brother better than anyone. Whenever Yan sets a goal for himself, he never treats it as a dream. In his mind, it's already a promise. After that, Yan finally addresses the real issue. He tells Yao that she should never throw away her future because of him. The moment she hears those words, she realizes her brother saw through her excuse immediately. He already figured out the real reason she wanted to quit school. It wasn't because she lacked confidence in herself. It was because she was worried about money. She knew college would be expensive, and after seeing Yan's achievements, she decided she'd rather sacrifice her own future than become another burden on him. Wanting to completely erase those worries, Yan hands her a bank card. He tells her not to concern herself with money anymore, because he already has plenty of ways to earn it. He simply hasn't started using them yet. Then he gives her a challenge instead. He tells her to focus on studying and training as hard as possible. According to Yan, once he reaches the top, everyone's attention will naturally shift toward his little sister. Being related to the strongest student in the city won't make life easier for her. If anything, it will make things harder. The expectations people place on her will become enormous. Yan jokingly warns her that once everyone starts calling her the top dog's little sister, she'll have no choice but to become the strongest student in her own grade. Hearing those words completely breaks Yao's emotional defenses. Her body starts trembling, tears fill her eyes, and before she realizes it, she's already throwing herself into her brother's arms. Through her tears, she promises that she won't embarrass the family, and that she'll work hard too. Seeing her finally let out all the pressure she had been carrying makes Yan feel relieved. This is exactly what he wanted. Unlike his previous life, where he never got the chance to protect her, this time, he can actually be there for her. After comforting Yao, Yan quietly begins planning his next move. He has already solved the immediate money problem, but that's only the beginning. If he truly wants to change his fate and become the strongest, he'll need to grow much faster. That means earning money and gaining levels at the same time. With that goal in mind, he immediately thinks of a place beyond the human-controlled regions inside the demon cave. Unlike the beginner training grounds, these areas are far more dangerous, but the rewards are also on a completely different level. The place Yan has his eyes on is Poison Dragon Valley. It's a region famous for being packed with monsters, making it one of the best locations for rapid solo leveling. Of course, the reason most people avoid it is because it's also incredibly dangerous. A single mistake there can easily cost someone their life. For Yan, however, the valley looks less like a death trap and more like a giant pile of opportunities waiting to be collected. The dense monster population means endless experience points, valuable materials, and plenty of magic crystals that can be sold for huge amounts of money. There's another reason Yan is interested in Poison Dragon Valley. Rumors say that somewhere deep inside the valley lives a rare dragon-type monster. The moment he thinks about that rumor, he can't help but get excited. If he can somehow obtain one of the creature's eggs, he'll finally be able to make proper use of his universal grafting skill. With a dragon egg as a foundation, he could potentially create an incredibly powerful monster and turn it into a loyal battle companion. The possibilities are enough to make even someone with Yan's experience look forward to the future. By the end of the night, Yan's mind is already made up. Between the chance to level up quickly, earn money, collect valuable magic crystals, and possibly find a dragon egg, Poison Dragon Valley offers everything he currently needs. Determined to keep moving forward and seize every opportunity this second life gives him, Yan decides that the very next day, he'll set out for the Poison Dragon Valley and begin his first true solo adventure beyond the safe zones. The following day, Yan boards a bus headed toward Nanrong City's demon cave. As the vehicle moves along, he quietly thinks about his next objective. To reach Poison Dragon Valley, he first has to pass through the demon cave itself. Since it's still early in the day, he expects the area to be packed with people. The demon cave is connected directly to Nanrong City through a single passage, and inside it sits a massive human stronghold that serves as one of humanity's major defensive fortresses against monster invasions. In his previous life, Yan spent years here under the control of powerful figures. The entire place brings back memories he'd rather forget. The fortress itself is overseen by 2 bosses above level 70, and unfortunately, those were the same people who once treated him like a tool instead of a person. After entering the demon cave, Yan immediately notices how crowded it is. Awakeners are everywhere, and nearly all of them are fully equipped with weapons and armor. Unlike the safety of the city, People don't take chances here. The moment someone steps into the cave, they prepare for battle because danger can appear at any time. Just by looking around, Yan can tell that most of the equipment being worn costs a fortune. Even so, he isn't particularly impressed. Compared to the storage ring Kexen gifted him, most of this gear looks ordinary. Then again, Kexen belongs to a level of wealth that most people can't even imagine. A while later, Yan arrives at the East Gate, the exit closest to Poison Dragon Valley. Among all the explored regions connected to the Demon Cave, Poison Dragon Valley is considered one of the safer options. Most monsters there range between levels 13 and 18, making it the perfect grinding zone for someone at Yan's current level. However, the moment he presents his identification, the guards immediately start giving him strange looks. After seeing that he's a dual F-rank awakener, the captain can't help roasting him. The man asks if Yan seriously plans to enter the valley alone with what he calls 2 trash classes. He warns Yan that the rookie training grounds are nothing compared to the true wilderness of the Demon Cave. Yan simply thanks him for the concern and calmly continues walking. Before leaving, he confidently tells the captain that he'll definitely come back alive. The captain, however, genuinely believes the kid is about to throw his life away. Wanting to stop him from making a huge mistake, the man suddenly lunges forward to grab him. To his complete shock, Yan effortlessly slips past him without slowing down. The captain freezes on the spot. He can't believe a supposedly weak dual F-rank awakener just dodged a level 30 professional like it was nothing. For several seconds, the man is left staring blankly at the direction Yan disappeared. Not long afterward, one of the other guards explains why the captain shouldn't underestimate him. He reveals that Yan is the same freshman who ignored class rankings and shattered multiple rookie records by himself. Not only that, he's also the #1 student in both academics and combat at Nanrong First High, and one of the strongest contenders for this year's college entrance exam champion. Hearing all of that leaves the captain completely speechless. To him, it sounds more like a fairy tale than reality. Even many of the top awakeners from previous years never pulled off achievements as ridiculous as Yan's. Meanwhile, Yan finally enters Poison Dragon Valley. The place is filled with opportunities, but it also comes with a major problem. Toxic gas covers large portions of the area, making antidote pills absolutely necessary for survival. Yan pulls one out from his storage ring and swallows it immediately. The downside is that each pill only remains effective for around 3 hours. Since the pills aren't exactly cheap and Yan is still painfully broke, he plans to make every second count. Almost immediately after taking the antidote, 3 level 13 poison wing lizards charge toward him. Yan doesn't even flinch. To him, they're nothing more than warm-up targets. He quickly cuts them down using his Azure Steel Blade and gains experience from each kill. Seeing his progress increase after only 3 monsters immediately puts him in a good mood. With that, Yan pushes deeper into the valley. Before long, he encounters an even larger group of monsters and decides to speed things up. Activating Modify, he transforms the Azure Steel Sword into the Azure Jar Sword and charges straight into battle. Poison Wing Bats start dropping one after another as Yan cuts through them with ease. He practically welcomes more monsters to come at him. The non-stop slaughter rewards him with a huge amount of experience, allowing him to level up further. Once the bats are dealt with, he moves on to a patch of carnivorous fiend grass and wipes them out just as quickly. The experience gained pushes him even higher. Not satisfied yet, he continues onward and starts hunting large groups of miasma toads. Just like everything else so far, they barely slow him down. By the time he's finished clearing them out, Yan has climbed all the way to level 18. After hours of fighting, Yan finally takes a short break to recover and let Regenerate do its job. Although his leveling speed has been excellent, he's still a little disappointed. Despite killing a ridiculous number of monsters, he hasn't found a single magic crystal. Since those crystals are one of his main sources of future income, the lack of drops makes him wonder if he's having a terrible luck streak today. Unfortunately, before he can think about it any longer, a voice suddenly calls out from behind him, asking if he was the one who killed all the monsters in the area. Turning around, Yan sees 2 young men walking toward him with the confidence of people who think they own the place. One of them is immediately recognizable. It's Lu Yuan, the famous S-rank Gale assassin from Nanrong 7th High and the young master of the powerful Lu family. The other guy appears to be one of his followers. While Yan is still recognizing Lu Yuan, the lackey impatiently asks his question again and demands an answer. Instead of responding immediately, Yan quietly studies him. The silence stretches on long enough to annoy the guy. Eventually, Yan stands up and calmly asks what exactly the man plans to do if he chooses not to answer. That single response instantly sets the lackey off. The guy starts running his mouth and throwing Lu Yuan's name around, as if that alone should scare people. Before things can escalate further, Lu Yuan steps in and finally speaks. Unlike his companion, he acts surprisingly polite. He reveals that he already knows who Yan is, praises his achievements, and even invites him to join their party. However, Yan doesn't hesitate for even a second. He rejects the offer immediately and starts walking away. From his perspective, there's no reason to split his hard-earned experience and loot with a group of arrogant rich kids, especially when none of them are offering to pay him. The lackey nearly explodes from anger after being ignored like that. Once Yan leaves, he asks Lu Yuan why he stopped him from teaching Yan a lesson. Lu Yuan simply shakes his head and explains that anyone capable of reaching this depth of Poison Dragon Valley Valley alone with 2 F-rank classes clearly isn't ordinary. He admits that Yan probably has some real talent. Still, Lu Yuan isn't planning to let the matter go completely. He tells the lackey to be patient and promises that if they run into Yan again, there will be plenty of opportunities to settle things. Hearing that is enough to make the lackey happy. Convinced that Yan is still nothing more than trash, he starts looking forward to the next time their paths cross. Meanwhile, Yan continues pushing deeper into Poison Dragon Valley. At this point, he only has 1 antidote pill remaining, so he decides to keep things simple. His plan is to hunt a few more miasma toads, reach level 19, and then call it a day. Unfortunately, things don't go according to plan. After spending nearly an hour searching the valley, he doesn't find a single worthwhile target. The lack of monsters is frustrating enough, but what disappoints him even more is the complete absence of rare creatures. Ever since entering the valley, he'd been hoping to run into the rumored dragon-type monster hidden somewhere in the region. Not only has he failed to find it, but he hasn't even seen anything remotely related to a dragon. Just as Yan is wondering whether his luck has completely abandoned him, a dark projectile suddenly shoots toward him. Fortunately, his reaction speed is fast enough. He instantly raises the azure sword and blocks the incoming attack before it can hit him. After deflecting it, he carefully studies the strange object and realizes it isn't just some random projectile. Whatever launched, it possesses surprisingly powerful defensive capabilities. As Yan prepares for a fight, a gigantic creature suddenly bursts out of the forest. The ground shakes as a massive toad lands before him, growling like an enraged beast. The monster is the Miasma Toad King, a level 20 boss monster. Its abilities include mutated toad hide, giant tongue bind, and burst poison gland. For most people, running into a level 20 boss while alone in Poison Dragon Valley would be a nightmare. Yan, however, looks more excited than worried. The only thing on his mind is the possibility of finally obtaining a magic crystal. After spending all day farming monsters without a single drop, the appearance of a boss feels like a gift from heaven. Without wasting any time, the Toad King launches its first attack, activating Giant Tongue Bind. It lashes its enormous tongue toward Yan at high speed. The attack is dangerous, but Yan effortlessly dodges it. After watching the monster move, he quickly figures out how he wants to deal with it. Snapping his fingers, he activates Modify and changes Giant Tongue Bind into Giant Tongue Tangle. The effect is immediate. When the Toad King attacks again, its own tongue wraps around itself, nearly choking the giant creature. Taking advantage of the opening, Yan leaps into the air and brings down the azure sword toward the monster's head. Unfortunately, things don't go as smoothly as he hoped. The strike lands, but it fails to deal meaningful damage. Before Yan can follow up, the Toad King activates Mutated Toad Hide. Instantly, its defense skyrockets as its skin becomes nearly impenetrable. To make matters worse, because the boss is a higher level than Yan, the modification effect doesn't last long. Giant Tongue Tangle quickly reverts back into Giant Tongue Bind. Yan clicks his tongue in annoyance. This is one of the biggest weaknesses of Modify. When used on enemies above his level, the duration gets drastically reduced, and sometimes the modification can even fail outright. As the giant tongue comes flying toward him again, Yan realizes he'll need something more extreme to win this fight. Instead of panicking, he decides to take a dangerous gamble. Reaching into his storage ring, he pulls out the Demon Blade. Then he activates Modify and changes it into something far more terrifying, the Demon Fall Sword. This modification essentially summons a demon and merges part of its existence with the blade. The moment the transformation completes, a sinister eye appears above the sword's handle. At the same time, a thunderous voice erupts from the weapon, demanding to know who dared summon it. Yan immediately realizes what he has just unleashed. The weapon has become a Demon King sword. According to the status information, its attributes are completely unknown. However, it contains a fragment of the consciousness of the 7th Demon King, Blood Spirit Sure. The system even warns that the sword is extremely dangerous and should never be used recklessly. Seeing that warning, Yan doesn't waste time admiring his new weapon. He knows this thing is a ticking time bomb. His only option is to kill the Toad King before the situation spirals out of control. Gathering every ounce of strength he has left, Yan swings the sword. The result is absurd. With a single strike, the blade cleanly slices through the Miasma Toad King, instantly killing the level 20 boss. The battle ends in one attack. However, the price is just as brutal. The Demon Fall sword drains nearly all of Yan's stamina, causing him to collapse immediately after the victory. As he struggles to recover, the situation becomes even worse. The eye on the sword suddenly begins glowing, and Shure's consciousness starts trying to seize control of Yan's body. Yan immediately attempts to change the weapon back, but there's a problem. He has no stamina left. Without energy, he can't activate Modify. As he lies there exhausted, the eye of the Demon King locks onto him. Shure is furious that a mere human dared borrow his power. Boasting arrogantly, he declares that even a tiny fraction of his strength is enough to enslave Yan's entire world. He starts talking about conquering humanity and making Yan pay for summoning him. Unfortunately for Shure, Yan isn't some clueless rookie encountering a Demon King for the first time. In fact, Yan was already prepared for this exact situation. Drawing on his experience from his previous life, he forces himself back onto his feet. Then, Before Shur can finish his dramatic villain speech, Yan grabs the azure sword and smashes the eye embedded in the demon fall sword. The attack severs Shur's connection to the weapon instantly. The Demon King is absolutely livid. As his consciousness begins fading away, he screams threats, swears revenge, and describes countless horrible things he plans to do to Yan in the future. Yan, meanwhile, couldn't care less. The moment Shur disappears, the pressure on his body vanishes as well. Letting out a relieved sigh, Yan finally relaxes. The Demon King's invasion attempt has failed, but he still has another problem. He remains too exhausted to activate Modify and return the weapon to its original form. For now, all he can do is rest and recover his stamina before leaving the valley. Thinking back on what happened, Yan remembers a much worse incident from his previous life. Back then, one of his modifications accidentally summoned the 9th Demon King, Thunder Spirit Annihilation. The chaos that followed became so severe that a nation-guarding general above level 80 had to intervene personally. Thankfully, that disaster taught Yan a valuable lesson. The key to suppressing Demon King summons is simple. Their consciousness is tied directly to the weapon, so destroying that connection is the fastest way to shut them down. Thanks to that hard-earned experience, what could have become a catastrophe today ended with nothing more than a very angry Demon King getting sent back where he came from. While waiting for his stamina to recover, Yan finds himself thinking about the terrifying existence he had just encountered. The fragment of the 7th Demon King was powerful enough to nearly take over his body, despite being only a tiny piece of its true self. That leaves Yan wondering where beings like Shur actually come from. Are they native to the Demon Caves, or do they originate from an even more horrifying world beyond them? The more he thinks about it, the less he likes the possible answers. Eventually, his stamina recovers enough for him to activate Modify again, and he immediately changes the Demon Fall sword back into its original form. With that dangerous problem handled, it's finally time to collect his rewards. As he approaches the corpse of the Miasma Toad King, Yan can't help hoping that the boss dropped a magic crystal. Fortunately, luck finally decides to smile on him. Embedded within the corpse is a level 20 boss magic crystal. The moment he sees it, his eyes light up. On the market, a crystal like this is worth at least 100,000 credits. For someone who spent most of his life worrying about money, this is his first truly massive payday. After collecting the crystal, he doesn't stop there. Using his storage ring, he stores the Toad King's corpse along with the remains of all the monsters he killed throughout the day. These monster materials are considered high-quality crafting resources and can be sold for additional profit. Yan already knows he won't be selling any of it through ordinary channels. The regular market always offers terrible prices, especially when dealing with valuable monster materials. Instead, he plans to take everything to the black market, where buyers are willing to pay much more. Once everything is packed away, Yan opens his status screen to check his progress. That's when he notices something unexpected. After killing both the Miasma Toad King and the mysterious entity connected to Shur, he gained enough experience to level up twice in a row. He has now officially reached level 20. The discovery immediately gets his brain working. Yan suspects that the unknown entity listed by the system was actually Shur's consciousness. If that's true, then destroying fragments of Demon Kings grants experience. For a brief moment, he starts imagining how ridiculous this loophole could be. If summoning a Demon King fragment and smashing its consciousness grants free levels, couldn't he repeatedly exploit the trick until reaching absurd heights? The thought of power leveling himself straight to level 100 is definitely tempting. Unfortunately, the risks are just as insane. One mistake could unleash a catastrophe powerful enough to destroy the city and force him to relive another nightmare. After considering the consequences, Yan wisely decides that some shortcuts simply aren't worth the gamble. Moving on, he checks the new abilities he received from reaching level 20. Every 10 levels grants a new innate skill, and this time his Repairman class provides a skill called Dismantle. The ability allows him to dismantle items below level 10 and recover various materials from them. On top of that, there's a 10% chance of triggering a critical reward effect, which doubles the materials obtained. Yan immediately recognizes the value of this skill. In his eyes, Dismantle is practically a money printing machine. His farmer class also grants a new level 1 talent called Pest Immunity, which protects crops from pests. Although Pest Immunity sounds boring at first glance, Yan knows better than anyone that appearances can be deceiving. Through Modify, the skill can potentially become the divine tier ability Damage Immunity. The problem is that Damage Immunity comes with countless restrictions and limitations, making it unreliable for everyday use. Even so, Yan doesn't underestimate it. When things go truly wrong, a life-saving trump card like that can mean the difference between survival and death. Overall, he's extremely satisfied with his new gains, and feels that today's trip has already exceeded expectations. With everything settled, Yan finally begins making his way out of Poison Dragon Valley. However, before he gets very far, he notices someone waiting for him on top of a tree. The person is none other than Lu Yuan's arrogant lackey, Lu Tao. The moment Yan spots him, he stops walking and wonders what kind of stupidity is about to happen. Lu Tao, a level 17 assassin with a B-rank combat class, twirls his dagger around and smugly reveals that he's been waiting here specifically for Yan. Without wasting another second, Tao jumps down and rushes forward while throwing insults around, clearly convinced that he's about to teach a dual F-rank awakener a lesson. Activating his quick-step skill, Tao boosts his agility by 30% and lunges forward with his daggers. In his mind, the fight is already over. Unfortunately for him, reality hits a little differently. Before he can even finish convincing himself of his own greatness, Yan swings his sword once. That's it, one strike. The next thing Tao knows, he's flying through the air like discarded trash. He crashes into the distance, battered and completely confused. The guy can't understand how Yan is faster than him despite his agility-focused class. He's even more shocked after noticing Yan casually pulling weapons from a storage ring. In Tao's eyes, someone with dual F-rank classes shouldn't be able to afford something that expensive. Yan calmly watches the defeated assassin, and honestly can't understand why so many people believe a combat class automatically makes them superior. From his perspective, class rankings are only one piece of the puzzle. Training, combat experience, physical stats, battle instincts, and level differences all play massive roles in determining someone's strength. Looking at the broken Lu Tao sprawled across the ground, Yan concludes that the guy is simply weak. However, he does acknowledge one thing. Unlike his lackey, Lu Yuan is probably the real deal. As if on cue, Lu Yuan suddenly emerges from the shadows and attacks. Yan notices him immediately and blocks the strike without panic. After their weapons collide, Lu Yuan compliments Yan's azure gold sword, while Yan returns the gesture by praising Lu Yuan's saber. The brief exchange ends with both of them stepping back. Unlike Lu Tao's reckless attack, this confrontation feels completely different. Lu Yuan openly challenges Yan to a duel because he wants to see whether the hype surrounding him is actually justified. Since Lu Yuan clearly doesn't think Yan deserves the top spot, Yan decides to make things interesting. Rather than settling for a simple spar, he raises the stakes and proposes a wager. The loser must hand over their weapon. Whoever wins takes the other person's blade. Lu Yuan agrees instantly, without the slightest hesitation. The confidence of an S-rank Gale assassin practically radiates off him. The moment the bet is set, he explodes forward at full speed. Using Gale Stride, his signature skill, Lu Yuan harnesses the power of wind to increase his agility by a massive 80%. The speed boost is terrifying, and most rookies would probably lose track of him entirely. Yan, however, remains perfectly calm. Instead of feeling pressured, he actually looks excited. Watching Lu Yuan rush toward him, Yan openly admits that he's already looking forward to adding that saber to his collection. After all, from his point of view, this duel is starting to look less like a challenge and more like another opportunity to earn a free weapon from an overly confident opponent. Lu Yuan shifted into a defensive stance, his eyes locked firmly onto Yan as countless thoughts raced through his mind. His class had always been destined to be faster than everyone else. Speed was his greatest weapon, the very foundation of his strength. The next moment, he exploded forward like a bolt of lightning, charging straight at Yan with terrifying momentum. Yan immediately raised his arms and weapons to defend himself, struggling to keep up with the relentless barrage of attacks raining down from every direction. Even while blocking, he could not suppress his shock. Lu Yuan's speed was simply outrageous. As expected of an S-rank combat class, every movement was incredibly fast and difficult to follow. Nearby, Tao lay on the ground, witnessing the entire battle unfold before his eyes. Excitement filled his face as he shouted at the top of his lungs, cheering for Lu Yuan and urging him to finish the fight. Seeing Yan seemingly forced onto the defensive by his overwhelming speed, Lu Yuan's confidence grew even further. In his mind, the outcome already seemed obvious. Yan was too slow, completely unable to keep up. Convinced that victory was already within reach, Lu Yuan made his move. In a sudden blur, Lu Yuan vanished from Yan's sight and instantly reappeared behind him, aiming directly for his blind spot. At that exact moment, blood splashed into the air. For a brief second, everyone believed the battle had already ended. Yet in the very next instant, an unbelievable scene unfolded before their eyes. Without even turning around, Yan had reached back and grabbed the dagger, stopping Lu Yuan's attack dead in its tracks. The strike that was supposed to decide the battle had been completely halted. Yan calmly looked at Lu Yuan, not a trace of panic visible in his eyes, and stated in a steady voice that the victor had already been decided. Hearing those words and seeing his attack effortlessly stopped, Lu Yuan finally realized what he had failed to understand from the very beginning. Yan had never intended to compete with him in speed at all. This was the true strength of the freshman ranked first in Nanrong City. Instead of frustration, a smirk appeared on Lu Yuan's face. Finally, things were starting to become interesting. If Yan could trade injury for injury, then he could also sacrifice part of his advantage to survive. Without giving Lu Yuan even a moment to recover, Yan immediately swung his weapon with tremendous force. The attack tore through the air with frightening speed and overwhelming power. However, at the critical moment, Lu Yuan instantly leaped backward and narrowly avoided the blow. His body shot through the air before landing safely at a distance. Although he had escaped, the maneuver came with a price. To save himself, Lu Yuan had abandoned his weapon without the slightest hesitation, choosing survival over possession. It was a decision that demonstrated remarkable decisiveness and battlefield awareness, Even Yan could not help but praise him for it. His combat experience was truly impressive. Yan casually tossed the dagger aside, before questioning how Lu Yuan intended to continue fighting without a weapon. By then, Lu Yuan was already standing high on the branch of a nearby tree, looking down at Yan from above. He revealed that he was quite fond of that particular dagger, and therefore always kept 3 of them stored inside his storage ring. Hearing that, Yan suddenly remembered Lu Yuan's status. He was the eldest young master of the prestigious Lu family of Nanrong City. While a B-rank weapon was extraordinarily expensive to ordinary people, to someone like Lu Yuan, it was nothing more than a drop in the ocean. Even so, Yan confidently tightened his grip and prepared himself for what came next. Defeating a genius like Lu Yuan only made this battle feel far more satisfying. At that moment, Lu Yuan raised his newly drawn daggers and activated one of his abilities, Gale Cleaving Slash. A powerful purple aura immediately surged from his body, and his expression became more serious than ever before. He declared that Yan was the first opponent worthy of witnessing this technique. Originally, he had believed the honor would belong to the Sword Saint. With a thunderous roar, Lu Yuan swung his blades at astonishing speed. Sharp blade slashes tore through the air one after another, covering a massive area as they rushed toward Yan from every direction. Faced with the overwhelming assault, Yan immediately moved at high speed, weaving through the incoming attacks. As he narrowly avoided slash after slash, he calmly analyzed the situation. This was the true strength of a combat class. Every innate skill provided a tremendous boost in battle. Another barrage of blade auras surged toward him, forcing him to constantly change direction and adjust his movements. On top of that, Lu Yuan was an S-rank combat class, one of the strongest possible combat professions. Even while dodging, Yan could not deny how terrifying his opponent was. Yet the longer Yan observed the attacks, the more he noticed a flaw. Although Lu Yuan's close-quarters speed was extraordinary, the blade auras themselves were noticeably slower. Releasing such large-scale wind attacks also had to consume a tremendous amount of stamina. In Yan's mind, the path to victory became clear. Hiding and waiting for a single decisive strike was his only chance. After all, revealing his true innate skill was not an option. Meanwhile, Lu Yuan finally realized that Yan had vanished completely. He stopped attacking and carefully scanned the battlefield. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Standing amidst the destruction he had created, Lu Yuan calmly acknowledged that Yan had hidden himself, calling it a wise decision. Then he gathered Gale aura around himself once more, and shouted that hiding would become meaningless once there was nowhere left to hide. As soon as he finished speaking, another huge wave of slash erupted from his blades, devastating everything in their path. The surrounding forest suffered immensely under the relentless bombardment. Massive trees were sliced apart one after another, crashing to the ground with deafening, thunderous noises. Eventually, after reducing the entire area to ruins, Lu Yuan descended from above and landed on the ground. Confident that Yan would now be exposed, he immediately searched the wreckage. What he found caused his eyes to widen. The battlefield was completely empty. There was not a single trace of Yan anywhere. However, at that exact moment, Lu Yuan suddenly sensed a presence behind him. Instantly, he spun around and launched an attack. His blade flashed through the air with incredible speed, cutting directly toward the detected target. But when the strike landed, it revealed nothing more than a tree stump. The realization shocked the Gale assassin. At the same moment, Yen emerged from behind him and charged forward, declaring that it was a feint to the east and a strike to the west, and that he had won. Hearing those words, Lu Yuan's expression grew increasingly complicated. An F-rank class had actually pushed him this far, using not only the terrain, but even the surrounding plants to create an opening. Looking at Yan, he felt both disbelief and admiration. If Yan possessed an A-rank class instead, he could not even imagine how powerful Yan would have become. Yet despite that admiration, he refused to accept defeat. Raising his dagger, he reminded himself that no matter how impressive Yan was, he remained an F-rank class, while he himself was a genuine S-rank combat class. Losing like this was simply unacceptable. Without hesitation, Lu Yuan activated another ability called Gale Ring Shield. A powerful barrier instantly materialized before him, standing firmly between himself and Yan, while completely blocking the attack path. Seeing the shield appear, Yan was briefly shocked. He immediately realized that Lu Yuan had already surpassed level 20 and gained another innate skill. Even so, his confidence did not waver in the slightest. His cyan steel sword was not merely for decoration. The pressure radiating from the blade rapidly intensified, causing cracks to spread across the surface of the shield. At the same time, even Yan's sword began vibrating under the tremendous force being exerted. Then, in the next instant, boom! The barrier shattered completely, fragments of energy exploding in every direction as the shield broke apart. The remaining force of the attack slammed directly into Lu Yuan, launching him a tremendous distance away. Yan silently watched as his opponent disappeared into the distance, before looking ahead and considering whether he should pursue him. For a brief moment, the thought crossed his mind. However, the battle had clearly not reached the point of life and death. More importantly, Lu Yuan was not a bad person. In his previous life, he remembered Lu Yuan had even led the Lu family in resisting the monster invasion. Meanwhile, far away from the battlefield, Lu Yuan lay sprawled across the ground in a miserable state. Every part of his body ached, and his stamina had been pushed to the brink of exhaustion. Even so, the fire in his eyes had not gone out completely. Deep down, he still refused to admit defeat. The battle was not over yet. If Yan came any closer, he planned to unleash a windblade at point-blank range, determined to cripple his opponent and continue fighting. However, another realization quietly surfaced. He was an S-rank combat class, someone who should have stood far above ordinary geniuses, yet he had been pushed into such a desperate situation by someone with an F-rank class. The more he thought about it, the more unbelievable it seemed. For the first time, Lu Yuan truly understood that an F-rank class could also grow into something terrifyingly powerful, but he still believed that the potential of an S-rank class was ultimately greater. That's when he noticed Yan approaching from the distance. Instantly, his focus sharpened. Assuming the battle was about to resume, he secretly prepared one of his daggers for a final surprise attack. His eyes never left Yan for even a second, yet just when he was ready to strike, something completely unexpected happened. Yan stopped in front of him and calmly extended his hand. The gesture left Lu Yuan stunned. Confusion filled his face as he stared at the outstretched hand, unable to understand what was happening. Then Yan spoke, saying that the battle had ended in a draw and that Lu Yuan was truly strong. Still confused, Lu Yuan questioned what Yan meant by that. In response, Yan smiled slightly and explained that Lu Yuan was an opponent worthy of his attention and that he considered the match a tie. For a brief moment, Lu Yuan simply stared at him in silence. Then he finally understood what he was seeing. There was no mockery, arrogance, or contempt in Yan's eyes. It was genuine acknowledgement. Yan did not look down on him at all. Instead, he recognized his strength. He realized Yan was equally strong as him. His expression gradually softened as he accepted a truth that every powerhouse eventually learns. There was always a higher mountain, and there would always be someone stronger. Afterward, the two young men reached out and firmly shook hands. Looking directly at Yan, Lu Yuan openly admitted that Yan was a true powerhouse, someone worthy of being regarded as his rival. However, he also declared that the next time they met, he would defeat him fair and square at the Freshman Top 100 tournament. Hearing that challenge, Yan responded with complete confidence. He told Lu Yuan that he would need to work much harder and become significantly stronger. Otherwise, before that day even arrived, he might lose the qualification to be considered his opponent. Later, Lu Tao dragged the exhausted Lu Yuan away while angrily shouting back at Yan. He loudly called Yan a little punk and warned him to just wait, complaining about how badly he had beaten up his Yuan bro. However, before he could continue, Lu Yuan immediately turned toward him and told him to watch his mouth from now on. He made it clear that Lu Tao should show Yan the same level of respect that he showed him. Hearing those words, Lu Tao could only obediently nod his head. A smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face as he declared that the next time they met, he would go all out and defeat him for sure. From a distance, Yan watched the pair leave and responded with only a faint smile. Inwardly, however, he found the statement somewhat amusing. If Lu Yuan had truly gone all out from the very beginning, then the moment he shouted the name of his first skill, the battle might have already been decided. After all, Gale Rending Slash possessed far more variations and applications than Lu Yuan realized. There were countless ways Yan could tweak and exploit the skill. Still, despite the satisfaction of finding a worthy opponent, he could not help feeling slightly disappointed. After such a fierce battle, he had gained almost nothing tangible. Since the fight had ended in a draw, he had even returned the dagger. Thinking about it now, the entire exchange felt suspiciously close to working for nothing. Yan let out a quiet sigh as that thought crossed his mind. Yet before he could dwell on it any longer, his attention instantly drew nearby. Whatever it was, it clearly wasn't ordinary. A realization flashed through his mind. It must have been connected to the earlier battle. Lu Yuan's Gale Slash had likely struck something hidden, forcing an invisible presence to reveal itself. Judging from the strange energy radiating through the area, it seemed to be some kind of special poisonous mist. The more Yan thought about it, the more curious he became. There was even a chance that investigating it could lead him to another boss-tier monster. That possibility alone was enough to make the trip worthwhile. Without wasting any time, Yan immediately activated his modification skill and converted his damage immunity into poison immunity. For the next 20 minutes, the skill would grant him immunity against toxins at D rank and below. Seeing the effect take hold, Yan nodded with satisfaction. With this ability active, there was no need to waste any of his antidote pills. Confident in his preparations, he began walking toward the source of the poisonous fog. As he moved forward, he wondered just what exactly was hiding inside that strange, poisonous mist. Following the source of the energy, Yan arrived at a large lake. Thick, poisonous mist floated above the surface of the water and slowly spread outward in every direction. After observing it for a moment, he said, "It's spreading out from the center of the lake. Looks like this whole lake is toxic. Could there be a legendary poison dragon living in here? Let's find out." The moment those words left his mouth, Yan jumped straight into the lake and began swimming deeper toward the center. As he moved through the water, he kept searching for the source of the staff poisonous aura. However, There were only weak monsters swimming around. None of them seemed powerful enough to create such an overwhelming poisonous presence. Just as he was thinking about it, a massive shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. The surrounding water trembled as a huge monster emerged from the depths. The monster, named Ice-Armored Crocodile Level 18, opened his enormous jaws and charged at Yan. But Yan quickly dodged its jaws and realized there is a big guy in the water. It was obvious that the monster saw him as prey and intended to swallow him whole. But instead of panicking, Yan remained. The monster continued pursuing Yan, but instead of feeling threatened, Yan felt slightly pleased. Since the creature had come to him on its own, he figured he would begrudgingly accept the free materials it was delivering. Without wasting any time, he launched his sword with perfect precision. The blade shot forward like a streak of light and pierced directly through the monster's mouth. At the same moment, the sword's armor penetration effect activated, completely bypassing its defenses. The attack was devastatingly effective. With a single strike, the monster was instantly killed. Yan summoned his sword back to his hand and calmly examined the enormous corpse. Looking at the creature's massive body, Yan quickly realized there was no chance of fitting the entire thing inside his storage ring. However, another idea immediately came to mind. This was the perfect opportunity to test his newly acquired dismantle skill. The skill allowed him to dismantle items of level 10 or below and obtain usable materials from them. On top of that, it carried a 10% chance to trigger a reward crit, an effect that would double the materials gained from the dismantling process. Curious to see the results, Yen raised a hand toward the corpse and activated the skill. Instantly, multiple square-shaped blocks of light covered the monster's body. The dismantling process began immediately, and within a few moments, it was completed. The results quickly appeared before him. First, he obtained ice armor crocodile bones, materials that could be used to craft low-level weapons. Next came the monster's meat, followed by its hide. The hide was a leather material that possessed valuable ice resistance properties, making it particularly useful. Yan stored all of the materials inside his storage ring, while mentally evaluating their worth. Among everything he had obtained, the hide caught his attention the most. It was a genuinely good material, and he decided he would definitely keep it for future use. Just as he finished organizing his loot, something suddenly made him glance behind him. Only then did he realize how much the environment had changed. A massive amount of poisonous mist was drifting through the area, much closer than before. He had been so focused on the monster that he had not even noticed how close he had gotten to the source of the strange toxic fog. His curiosity was immediately piqued. Turning toward the source, he decided to investigate further and find out exactly what was hidden within it. As he advanced through the poisonous mist, he continued getting closer and closer to its origin. Before long, he was close enough to observe the surrounding terrain. Everything around him had been warped and corrupted by toxins. Seeing that sight, Yen could not help wondering if his luck was truly this good. Choosing caution over recklessness, Yan first observed the area from a distance. Then, the moment he finally got a clear look at what was hidden there, his eyes widened in amazement. Before him slept the poison dragon, a level 43 monster. It was a female dragon that was still in its growth phase. Even so, it was already laying eggs, and its level had reached an astonishing 43. Yan stared at the scene in disbelief. It truly was a poison dragon. Despite not having reached maturity yet, it already possessed terrifying strength. A confident smile slowly appeared on his face as he evaluated the situation. As expected of a legendary high-tier monster, once it fully matured, it would likely reach at least level 70. His gaze then shifted toward the dragon eggs nearby. With his universal crafting skill, the potential of those eggs could be pushed even higher. If he could find an opportunity to steal them, the rewards would be immeasurable. In his mind, he even justified the plan by reminding himself of all the humans who had died in this place. Scattered before the poison dragon were several human skeletons, silent evidence of its victims. Taking those eggs could be considered revenge on behalf of everyone who had lost their lives here. Suddenly, the entire area began shaking violently, as if a powerful earthquake had struck. The ground trembled beneath Yan's feet, and a deep rumbling sound echoed through the surroundings. Instantly alert, Yan looked upward and wondered if it was what he thought it was. A moment later, his suspicions were confirmed. Another gigantic poison dragon descended from the sky, its enormous wings stirring up fierce winds as it flew overhead. Clutched in its grasp was a freshly killed boar. Seeing the scene, Yan immediately understood the situation. Of course, there was a male dragon as well. The male poison dragon landed beside the female and dropped the boar near her while she affectionately rubbed against him. Watching the pair, Yan quickly realized he stood no chance against two poison dragons when he could not even defeat one. Choosing not to act recklessly, he decided to retreat for now and return once he had grown stronger. Quietly making his way away from the area, Yen felt no disappointment. If anything, his goal had become clearer than ever before. A faint smile appeared on his face as he thought about the future. He only needed to continue growing stronger. Then, when the time was right, he would come back and claim those dragon eggs. If he succeeded, Who else could possibly compete with him for the title of Nanrong City's top scorer? Yan shifted his attention to his next objective. The materials he had gathered needed to be sold first. Thinking about the profits waiting for him, he decided it was time to visit the black market and cash out. Soon afterward, the scene shifted to Nanrong City's massive underground black market. According to rumors, a level 60 Grandmaster personally oversaw the entire operation. The same rumors claimed that the Grandmaster possessed an extraordinary background, which explained why the place continued operating openly. As Yan walked through the bustling underground market, he recalled what he knew from his previous life. As long as nothing truly major happened there, the authorities generally turned a blind eye. That unofficial protection made countless transactions possible, while also concealing more than a few sins. Eventually, Yan stopped in front of a particular shop. Looking at it, he immediately recognized the place. According to his memories from his previous life, this was one of the most reliable black market shops around. Inside, a hot woman stood casually smoking, while two men in front of her desperately tried to negotiate. One of them complained that it had not been easy for the brothers to obtain their haul, and asked if she could increase the price slightly. The woman remained completely unmoved. She calmly replied that she was already offering the highest price on the entire street. If they were unhappy with the offer, they were free to leave. Just then, her eyes drifted past them and landed on Yan standing near the entrance. Calling out to him, she casually asked whether the high school kid had something to sell as well. The two brothers immediately turned their attention toward Yan. One of them looked him up and down before mocking his appearance, pointing out that he did not even own a proper outfit, and questioning what valuable goods he could possibly have. The other brother directly gestured toward the exit, telling to get lost and stop wasting their boss's time. In response, Yan simply raised his hand and revealed the storage ring on his finger, casually stating that he did not really have anything special to sell. The moment the two brothers saw the storage ring, they froze. Their eyes widened as they stared at the expensive item in disbelief, wondering how someone like him could possess something so valuable. Without bothering to explain, Yan extended his hand and calmly announced that this was everything he had. Instantly, piles of monster materials appeared before everyone. The goods included all the valuable items he had collected throughout the raid, along with the materials he had obtained during his dungeon hunt. The two brothers were left completely stunned, and even the shop owner showed visible surprise. Among the items was ice-armored crocodile hide, causing her to wonder whether this kid had actually ventured into the deepest regions of Poison Dragon Valley. Then Yan revealed the most valuable item in his inventory. It was a magic crystal he got from Miasma Toad. The two brothers could only stare with wide eyes, their minds going blank from shock. Both men found themselves wondering who this mysterious kid really was. Completely ignoring their reactions, Yan calmly turned to the shop owner and asked her to tally everything up and tell him its total value. He added that she should hurry, since he would not want to delay the two brothers who were staring at the magic crystal, practically drooling over the priceless treasure before their eyes. The scene shifted to Yan sitting with Boss Chin inside her VIP room. After reviewing all the goods he had brought, she informed him that, according to their agreement, the materials were worth 78,500. As for the magic crystal, it was valued at 150,000. Altogether, the total came to 238,500. She then handed him a VIP card and explained that the entire amount had been deposited onto it. Yan smiled and praised Boss Chin for being straightforward in business. Just as he reached out to take the card, she stopped him for a moment and added that the gold card also represented his status as a VIP customer of Jinyu Pavilion. If he obtained more magic crystals in the future, she promised to offer him a 10% premium when purchasing them. Yan accepted the card and thanked her for her generosity. As he headed toward the exit, he reflected on why he had chosen to trade with her. In his previous life, Boss Chin had always been fair and reliable. However, he also understood that the VIP card and preferential treatment were clear signs that she valued his future potential. After leaving the shop, Yan noticed two shadowy figures in the distance, casually smoking cigars. They looked suspicious, but he merely smiled. At his current level, he wasn't worried about them posing any real threat. As he walked through the underground market, his thoughts drifted toward his future goals. To obtain national-level resource prioritization, becoming Nanrong City's top scorer was an essential requirement. Meanwhile, the two shady brothers watched him leave. Dropping their cigars, one remarked that it looked like the two of them were about to make a fortune today. The other agreed, saying they should teach the kid a lesson about not flaunting his wealth. Completely aware that he was being followed, Yan continued walking into a dimly lit area. At the same time, he considered spending some of his newly earned money on armor. Having only 2 weapons was still far from enough. As expected, the two brothers followed him. Yan had anticipated this from the very beginning. The moment he first entered the shop, he had noticed the heavy scent of blood lingering on them. Combined with the suspicious loot they carried, he had already concluded that their goods were likely stolen from other victims. Turning into a deserted alleyway, Yan calmly thought that dealing with them would simply be another way of accumulating good karma. Believing they had cornered their prey, the two brothers finally revealed themselves. One laughed, saying the kid had practically chosen his own grave. The other added that once they finished him off in such an isolated alley, nobody would discover the body until it started to stink. Yet when they stepped forward, Yan simply turned around and smiled. He informed them that they were incredibly slow, and that he had been waiting for them for ages. The first brother, Lu Dali, a level 17 D-rank combat class known as Butcher, stepped forward and mocked Yan for being nothing more than a high school student. The second brother, Shu Yong, a level 16 poison master, boasted that many people had already died at their hands and that Yan would soon join the list. In response, Yan sarcastically claimed he was terrified. After all, he was only an F-rank crafting class and obviously no match for 2 combat classes. The mocking tone instantly bruised their fragile egos. Furious, they demanded to know whether his face looked even remotely scared. With a smirk, Yan openly admitted that he was indeed mocking them. Enraged, Dali launched the first attack. Activating his skill, Slash, he lunged forward with his dagger. The skill rapidly unleashed multiple strikes to deal repeated damage. At the same time, Shu Yong activated Poison Coat, covering his dagger in deadly poison. Watching them activate their abilities, Yan calmly raised his hand. Since his rebirth, this would be the first time he used his skill on actual humans. Activating Modify, he instantly transformed Slash into Self-Slash. Instead of attacking Yan, the skill now forced Dali's own arms to rapidly slash his own body. Dali screamed in panic as he lost control of his hands. Seeing his brother suddenly attack himself, Yong was horrified, but before he could react, his own skill was modified as well. Poison Coat became Consume Poison, causing the poison to instantly affect its user. Blood poured from Yong's mouth as he coughed violently and collapsed to his knees, unable to understand why he had poisoned himself. While the 2 criminals suffered from their own abilities, Yan calmly walked toward them and asked whether they were finished. Then, in a cold voice, he declared that it was finally his turn to attack. Drawing his sword, he pointed it directly at them and remarked that they had committed quite a few murders and robberies over the years. Their retribution had finally arrived. Before long, both men were dead. After searching through their belongings, Yan discovered wanted posters bearing their faces. Only then did he realize they were officially wanted fugitives. For a brief moment, he considered turning in their bodies for the reward, but quickly dismissed the idea. Doing so would attract far too much attention. Continuing his search, he found a wolfskin trench coat among their loot. The equipment was level 10 and E-grade quality. Fortunately, it was a piece of armor he could actually use. Although it looked ordinary at first glance, Yan smiled. With his Modify skill, changing a single word could transform trash into treasure. Activating the skill, he modified Wolfskin Trench Coat into Qilin Skin Trench Coat. Instantly, the equipment evolved into A-grade quality. Its defense increased dramatically, its poison resistance improved, and it granted additional agility. More importantly, poisons below D rank could no longer harm the wearer. Yan put on the trench coat and found that it fit perfectly. As expected, modifying the names of special equipment often produced astonishing results. Embroidered across the coat were magical poison Qilin patterns. Although the equipment was not overwhelmingly powerful, it was still an excellent upgrade. Looking at his new gear, Yan smiled and decided it was finally time to head home. The college entrance examination was approaching, and more importantly, it was now his sister's turn to astonish everyone. Meanwhile, back at home, Yan's sister, Yao, was busy studying. At the moment, she was reviewing information about the 4 top-tier magical beast races. Dragons, Qilins, and Phoenixes were easy enough to remember, but she was still trying to recall the 4th category. Just then, the front door opened, and Yan walked inside, carrying a large pile of groceries and various supplies. Calling out for help, he asked Yao to come over. She immediately rushed toward him and was stunned by everything he was carrying. Her eyes quickly landed on his new trench coat as well. The outfit looked less like ordinary clothing and more like a piece of impressive armor. Unable to contain her curiosity, she asked where he had gotten all of it. With a grin, Yan proudly replied that he had naturally earned everything through his own abilities. A moment later, Yan revealed another surprise. Starting this month, he was increasing her allowance. Yao immediately shook her head and insisted that there was no need. 50 yuan was already more than enough for her expenses. However, Yan disagreed completely. He handed her a stack of cash and informed her that from now on, her monthly allowance would be raised to 500 yuan. If that still wasn't enough, she could simply ask him for more. Hearing that, Yao was completely shocked. Her first reaction was to wonder whether her brother had done something illegal. Before she could continue that train of thought, Yan lightly tapped her on the head and told her to stop letting her imagination run wild. Changing the subject, Yan reminded her that tomorrow was his mobilization rally for the college entrance examination. Wearing a confident smirk, he casually remarked that with his current level, he would basically just go through the motions and return home afterward. He even promised to take her out for a good meal the following night. However, Yao's attention was immediately caught by one particular detail. Curious, she asked what level he had reached. Yan answered with an expression that practically screamed he was showing off. According to him, it was merely level 20. The response left Yao speechless. Calling level 20 mere sounded absurd to her. In reality, Yan knew exactly how impressive that number was. The college entrance examination usually took place shortly after awakening, and during that period, ordinary students generally reached somewhere between level 10 and level 15. Only exceptionally talented individuals managed to reach level 16 to level 20. As for those who surpassed level 20, most came from powerful families capable of providing enormous amounts of resources. After all, level 20 represented a major threshold that required tremendous support to overcome. Looking at his own hand, Yan reflected that he had only managed to reach this point because he had accidentally killed the Demon King's clone. Without the benefits he had gained, even he would have found the process extremely difficult. Later that night, Yan made his way to the rooftop, standing beneath the night sky as a cool breeze swept across the city while he was farming aura. His thoughts naturally drifted toward the future. Once he became Nanrong City's top scorer, everything would change. New opportunities, new resources, and a completely different path would open before him. Looking out into the distance, a confident smile slowly appeared on his face. The college entrance examination was approaching fast, and he was more than ready for it.